If you have anything to do with Bitcoin, you must have been asked a million times, what can you actually buy with it? Well, today we have the answer. How about a Netflix subscription, a Microsoft product, music, or Uber credits? The South African company behind the Centbee wallet is introducing a new feature that allows users to do all that and more. It builds on their existing arrangement with tens of thousands of ordinary shops in South Africa, where you can put money into your Centbee wallet simply by paying cash or with a card at the checkout. And they also have an arrangement with banks. It all adds up to new possibilities for millions of people to use Bitcoin SV every day for things they'd otherwise have been doing in their national currency in a less efficient way. I talked to Lorien Gamaroff, co-founder and CEO of Centbee, about their new product.
You're listening to CoinGeek Conversations with Charles Miller.
Well, Lorien, thank you very much for joining me all the way from South Africa to England and to tell us about a very exciting new product which you're launching today, in fact. So I'll leave it to you to explain it.
Thanks, Charles. Always a pleasure to see you. We're very excited because, for 10 years now, people have been talking about Bitcoin as a payment system, as a cash rail. And, in spite of all the hype and all the promises, it's never really happened in that way. Bitcoin has always been complicated, difficult for people to understand, difficult for people to acquire. And then once they've got Bitcoin, actually using it as cash, that's sort of been something that's been rather elusive. So, we're very happy about, the progress that we've made. Our vision has always been to make Bitcoin a cash system. And finally now we've managed to close the loop in terms of what people can actually do with their Bitcoin once they've acquired it in their Centbee wallet.
Right. So last time we talked, which actually was less than a year ago, you were describing the system whereby somebody can go into the supermarket and pay some money, and that money is immediately put into their Centbee wallet. But now you've taken that a stage further with the utility of that system.
Yes, so obviously there's the retail integration, which would be where you can go to a supermarket and spend your Bitcoin. But that is quite a complex process. We've been working on it for a few years now, speaking to brick and mortar retailers and e-commerce merchants, trying to get them to do a Bitcoin SV integration. But that always takes time. And one thing that we thought would be really easy is if we actually bundled value-added services directly into the wallet. And that would mean that somebody could, without us having to now go and convince a retailer to accept Bitcoin, we could actually become a service provider ourselves or a retailer ourselves. So now what we have inside Centbee wallet is the ability to buy and make a purchase of a whole number of products, digital products. So, if we were to go through the list, there are things like Uber vouchers, Google Play vouchers. People can buy electricity for their smart meter. They can buy mobile airtime, mobile data. And so now, what we've got is a reason for somebody to have Bitcoin and not just for speculation. In Africa, many countries across Africa, people don't have a utility account where they consume electricity and then at the end of the month they have to pay the bill. What a lot of Africans have, many of them, most of them have, is what's called a prepaid meter. Now, the way that you use a prepaid meter is you have to go and purchase an energy quantity, so a number of kilowatt hours. Then what you do is you consume that electricity, and then when you run out, your meter will switch off, and you'll have to go and purchase more electricity to top up your meter.
I think it's what we call pay as you go.
Right, it's pay as you go, prepaid. But what South Africans and Africans will do generally is if they run out of electricity, they'll go find a vendor, and that's usually someone in a store or at some location. Then what they'll do is they'll make a payment and receive a code, a PIN code. and then they will take that PIN code to their prepaid meter, they'll punch it in, and then that will load the kilowatt hours onto the meter. So now what we have is directly from your wallet, what you can do is you can choose how much electricity you'd like to purchase, and the PIN code or the token is generated inside Centbee wallet. And then what you can do is you can take that PIN code and punch it directly into the meter, and thereby loading your meter. So this has now created a digital payment method for something like electricity, which is very common in the country, and finally made it accessible to all the people who would be interested in doing something like that.
That sounds great, but just for the purposes of really understanding the advantage here, if I was a user of your new system and I had to explain to a user of the old system why it was so good, what do you think I would be saying? How would I describe the advantage?
Yes, well, if you have a prepaid or pay-as-you-go meter, it is inconvenient, because what you generally have to do is, if you run out of electricity, you have to go and find a vendor that can supply that electricity, and that generally means driving somewhere, finding that vendor, having cash on you, and also they are only open at certain times during the day, so it's not something that you can just readily have access to. So digital payment methods obviously have a lot of convenience aspects to them. You can do it in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to wait for hours when the vendors are open. You don't have to travel to a location. And for a lot of people in countries like South Africa, travel is expensive, it's inconvenient. So, if we think about all the great things about digital payments, there are a large number of people who don't have access to those digital payments. But with a Bitcoin wallet being so accessible, not having the same requirements around opening bank accounts and so on, it just makes sense to be able to provide a digital payment system.
So I could basically keep a store of Bitcoin on my Centbee wallet, and then as soon as I needed some more electricity, I just buy a bit more and get the code.
That's right. So you wouldn't only have to have it for electricity. We do have, again, all those different value-added services, but electricity certainly is one of those.
So the only difficulty about that is the changing price of BSV, because I might do well or I might do badly if the price changes between buying it at the supermarket or the corner shop and using it to buy something.
Yes, that's right, and I think that's a perennial problem when it comes to Bitcoin as cash. If somebody is going to be holding Bitcoin, they're going to hope that the volatility isn't too great. I feel like that sort of problem will be less of an issue, in the years to come. But in spite of that, if we think about the convenience, and also, it's not the whole idea of Bitcoin really as cash. You're not really meant to have a huge amount of Bitcoin, but the convenience that you get from it, and the accessibility to it, the ability to make that payment where you are in your home. I think that that is something that might sort of dampen the fluctuations in price. Just simply because it is so much more convenient than the methods that have available to them.
Yeah, I mean, some of the services that you are highlighting initially, you've got airtime, which is to make your mobile phone calls, data for your phone, and electricity. So does that mean you've made arrangements with all of those providers that they will receive money in this way, or do they not need to agree to it?
Well, what we found is that if you were to go to every single service provider, it does become quite tricky. You have to have the same conversation with every single service provider, trying to convince them that there is a market of people out there who have Bitcoin and want to spend it. And in the same way, when we decided to tackle the acquisition of Bitcoin, we didn't go to every single one of those retailers, and there are 100,000 lanes right now available in South Africa. We didn't actually go to every one of those retailers to try and convince them. What we found was specific sort of middlemen, service providers that already have integrations into those retailers, and all we got them to do was to sort of switch on us as another service provider, where we would be using their integration into their retailers, so we didn't have to go and speak to them. Now, we've done exactly the same thing with our value-added services. We didn't want to go and have to convince all the utilities across the country to sell us electricity for Bitcoin, or the mobile telcos, all the other digital service providers like Google and Netflix and that. So what we have done is we've found partners that already have those integrations into those service providers, and what we have now we've done is we've got the relationship with those sort of middlemen service providers. So we didn't have to go and try and convince retailers. We now just do a basic integration into a prepaid partner, and that means we have an access to the bouquet of all their products that they have available.
Right, so you're talking now about being able to subscribe to Netflix and buy things on Google Play and stuff, which is great for the profile of Bitcoin and Centbee, because I'm not saying it falsely gives the impression, but it brings those big names right into a BSV integration.
Yes, that's right. I think that when you have the ability to use your Bitcoin on something that people know about, a few years ago, Steam games started accepting Bitcoin, and that did give a lot of credibility to Bitcoin as a payment system. Unfortunately, that was squandered when BTC, ended up, diverting and having the high fees. So, now that we have the ability for our users to purchase things that they already know about and would desire ordinarily, we can now not just provide that as a service to those users, but now it feels like Bitcoin is now sort of accepted socially.
Right. I mean, you are in a way playing to the strengths of Bitcoin that work in an African context, I think.
Yes, and when you live in Africa, when you live in an African country, you realize that the way people spend is different from, I guess, a European country or United States or the UK. So most people don't have bills that they're paying every month. They, as soon as they get a little bit of money, they will then go and spend it on something that they need. They might buy pay-as-you-go airtime, maybe send some to a relative. So it really does fit in with how Africans spend largely. When they get money, that's when they'll make a purchase for something. So this pay-as-you-go approach, bundling value-added services into Centbee Wallet, really does make sense in an African context.
I know you put a lot of work into talking to regulators and the financial establishment. How much do those relationships help with a product like this, or were you able to just go ahead with this anyway? Without having to ask any special favors or make any special arrangements?
Well, we certainly haven't got any special favors or arrangements. We've been very open with the regulators. The Reserve Bank and the tax, the revenue service here. We always made sure that everything we do is transparent. And before we go and launch a product, we do get we have consultations and we speak to them and we discuss what we're doing. We tell them all our plans, and I think it's more been a case of making them feel comfortable with what we're doing. If we were being cagey or not being honest with our plans, they might start questioning what we're doing and making it difficult. But we've gone out of our way to bring them into our decision making and and the discussions that we're having. So I think that they feel quite happy that we're doing that. There are a lot of crypto type companies that are acting in the shadows, and those tend to be the ones that they focus on. So I think what we're doing is we're slowly bit by bit, building out this whole ecosystem. Although now we've got it; it's quite extensive. But because they've been along with us for the journey and have felt sort of part of it, I think that they're becoming a little bit more confident and feeling that this is not something that that's going to slip through their fingers. So I that was probably the best thing that we did. Start from the very beginning, embracing them and bringing them on board. And because of that now, they have done some really cool things like creating a sandbox that they can the companies can operate out of. Their position now, the Reserve Bank's position, they've been working on in consultation with us. And so, we've managed to guide them through this process. And it's actually created now a very healthy environment for legitimate companies who are not trying to, get people involved in Bitcoin, with hopes of riches. We're showing them that this is a very financially inclusive technology. We are providing services to people who, again, have been excluded from the digital financial systems. And so they can see now that there's a lot of good that is going to come out of what we're doing.
It was a year ago when we last talked. You've obviously made tremendous progress since then because you have this whole new layer of utility. Where do you think this is going? I mean, in a year's time, what's the direction you'll be taking then, do you think?
We have now actual live products available here within South Africa. But we don't see ourselves just as a Southern African company. We do see ourselves as a global company. And now that we've worked out these models, we've managed to develop the technology and also figured out what sorts of relationships are required to be able to roll these services out. We're certainly going to now look to expand into many other countries. The first thing we'll do is we're going to open up our international KYC, Know Your Customer processes, which will then allow international users from around the world to be able to fulfill whatever KYC obligations they have, which will mean then that we can sell Bitcoin inside the wallet, or we'll be able to provide these value-added services and so on. So, we look at this place, the country that we're in right now, as our kind of, the place that we're developing all these ideas, and we're absolutely going to now start looking externally and applying those in different countries.
I know you already have a service which allows people in South Africa to send money to Nigeria. This is a rather sort of ignorant question, but I've got a Centbee wallet, can't I send money into another Centbee wallet wherever it is anyway?
Yes, but what we do is we don't send Bitcoin to other people's Bitcoin wallets. What we do is we terminate into bank accounts or mobile money. So right now, if somebody gets Bitcoin, they're stuck with it unless they have a way to spend it or sell it. What we do is we directly terminate into a bank account in local currency. So that means that somebody in South Africa sending money to Nigeria, they don't even know that they are interacting with Bitcoin. We actually have two ways of doing it. One is with our Minute Money app, where you don't actually even know that you're using Bitcoin. You'll go into the retailer, or you'll do the bank integration in the app. It's not a wallet. It's a process app, and you will then say, this is the bank account I want to send this money to, this is the name, and you'll hit send. And then what will happen is we will take that fiat currency, convert it to Bitcoin, send the Bitcoin, and then convert it back into the local currency and deposit it into the bank account. That is a way for people to use the remittance app without having to have knowledge of Bitcoin or wanting to be exposed to Bitcoin or their volatility.
It seems to me that what both those ideas, well, that idea and your new product have in common is that they are connecting two bits of the real world with a kind of BSV bridge, which may or may not be visible to the user, but you're using the sort of mobility and the flexibility of BSV, but very much plugged into real world situations. Is that the sort of strategy behind your business?
Yes, well, that's going to be the strategy of every Bitcoin business. Eventually, you have to leave the Bitcoin world and the Bitcoin BSV world and end up in some, non-Bitcoin related system, either a bank account or a product or something like that. So I think, the difficulty with Bitcoin has always been those points, the on-ramps and the off-ramps. And those are always going to be, what where most of the effort goes into trying to solve those problems. Once you're in Bitcoin, it's easy. There's no difficulty there. You can send it wherever you like, you can do whatever. But at the end of the day, it has to translate into some kind of real world thing. And most people right now don't get paid in Bitcoin. They get paid in whatever currency they have. So we need a way for them to be able to easily get onboarded into Bitcoin. And then once they're onboarded, fine, they've got their Bitcoin wallet, but then we then need to get them out of Bitcoin as well. And that's where, our strength lies, is being able to find those touch points, those on and off ramps, to make Bitcoin an actual real thing in the real world.
Thank you so much, Lorien, and really good luck with your new product, and look forward to hearing what the next stage will be.
Thanks, Charles. It's always a pleasure.
Many thanks to Lorien Gamaroff. After we recorded that conversation, Lorien did a live demo of the buying feature, which we'll be releasing on CoinGeek shortly, so keep an eye out for that. If you've enjoyed this edition of CoinGeek Conversations, or even if you haven't, would you please give us a like on YouTube or subscribe to the podcast? It will be much appreciated. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.